Hello again, everyone. Bob Martin with RCSub.com and the Nautilus Dry Docks, and we're going to continue this odyssey of building the OTW Upholder Class submarine with full RC control. So, as I said in my first chapter, typically what I do, I begin with the watertight cylinder, getting that all set up and functioning properly. So let's take a look at what we've got to work with. Okay. As I mentioned, this is an OTW cylinder. It's about 4.25 inches in diameter. It's all acrylic. And if I understand things correctly, Bob Dimmek actually stress relieves these cylinders in an oven to make sure that the odds of it cracking are low. It's one of the problems using acrylic. Starting at this end, you can see this is a waterproof battery connector, and this is actually automotive that was sourced, and the reason that I like doing that is because of the volume and standardization in the automotive industry. These are typically pretty bulletproof. I like this particular style, but there's tons of different options out there, but it's important to make sure that your connection is as waterproof as possible to prevent corrosion during operation. So one of the things that I'm going to need to do, really this unit is fairly set up as it is right now, but I'm going to need to install some servos. I'm going to be installing one in the front section, and that will be controlling the bow planes, and I'm going to be installing two in the rear, one for the rudder and one for the rear planes. And my thought at this point is to set the rear planes up on an automatic pitch controller, and the front ones will be controlled manually. So to get access to this cylinder is actually a pretty simple process. You remove these knurled nuts, and this front section is trickier than the rear because the inlet and outlet for the pumps are connected to either side there. So I'm actually going to need to pop off the silicone tubing from this rear section in order to get the cylinder off. So that's what we're basically looking at here right now. You can see that section in there, and where I need to get to is right in the middle. I'm going to have to disconnect all of these battery connections, the main battery connection for the pumps, and the servo lead as well. So here's the, as I mentioned, this is the front section, the pump section. You can see the main drive pump. We got a solenoid valve in there, the main pump controller in the bottom, and right here on these stands is where I will be mounting the servo. So we'll continue working on here and show you some more updates in a bit. Alright, one thing that I want to do first before I go too much further in this is actually set up the receiver for the boat. And what I've elected to use is Sombra Labs SL8. Really like these little units. They are completely programmable, which means there's no crystals. You can see that the owner of the boat has supplied me with a Futaba 4-channel radio operating on channel 75.95. So what we are going to do now is pair the receiver to the radio. So what we're going to want to do is turn our system on, and then I've jumpered channel 8, and that puts it into programming mode. And I'm going to connect the battery power to the receiver. If I can get in the holes, there we go. Now if you watch the servo, it's basically kind of twitching back and forth there. And that means it's trying to acquire the signal, and this takes a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes, but once it pairs up, it'll move to a location just like that. So theoretically, it's all paired up right now. Yeah, there we go. So you can see receiver's paired successfully with the transmitter on the very first try, which is very cool. And now I can establish center point on all the servos once I get them connected, because I want to get my linkages connected. All right, we are making some great progress here on getting the cylinder set up. I've removed the front rear section of the cylinder, trying to get that set up with the receiver and the servos and all of that kind of stuff. So this is where we're at right now. I have 3D printed a bracket or a mounting assembly for the servos, and you know, you're going to see that I use my 3D printer quite a bit, and it's not doing anything that I couldn't accomplish using some plastic sheet and a little bit of time. But in my mind, it makes a superior product, and it does it a lot faster because I can draft it very quickly in 3D, set it up on the printer, and then while it prints, I can do other stuff. So that saves time for me. And of course, it's very precise too, which is great. So got this all printed up in plastic. I got the servos mounted in there. I have mounted the receiver to the back. You can see the automated pitch control that came with the cylinder. Bonus, I don't need to set that up. And then on the front, you can see a couple of these little bunny ears that I also 3D printed, and I did that for a reason. So this is the back section. The tray slips into these channels. It goes in looking like this, and it looks like we're going to run into some problems, some interference issues. You can see these servos are bumping up against the outside of the cylinder wall. That is an easy fix. I'm not worried about that at all, because I'm going to use the inside ears of those. So for the sake of fitting very quickly, I'm just going to trim off the outside arms, and I'll trim off the other ones in a minute here. But you can see the assembly slips in nicely like this. And then what I'm going to do is take the motor bulkhead, slip that on, and I'm going to glue the ears here onto the front. And the reason I do that is because when you connect the front bulkhead with the linkages to the servos, if this is all loose, you know, you can't take the cylinder wall off because it's connected and it's, you know, prone to bending the linkage arms. So I like making it all one piece. So that's the way I'm going to set it up. Just going to glue it in place there, run the servo arms, and they'll all be one piece. The whole thing will just slip forward. So like I said, making some great progress. I'm excited to see how it's turning out, and we'll just keep trucking along. Okay, we are looking at the completed cylinder. I'm really happy with it. The rear section is all buttoned up. You can see our two servos. We got pitch control and rudder control. Our receiver, 8 channels, but there's going to be 4 that's being used. Got an automatic pitch control, again, that came with the cylinder. In the back here, you can see I've added a watts up controller in there. It's actually not a controller, it's a monitor. So it actually allows you to check your battery voltage just at a glance. But for a diagnostic tool, it's actually very cool as well, because it checks amp draw. So you can see if there is an issue with your linkages binding or your drive system binding. You can see what sort of amps are being drawn. for that kind of thing as well. So if we were to power this up, and I've got this connected to a 12 volt power system that I have at the bench here, so I'll turn on my radio and it'll turn on the power to the cylinder. So you can see the automatic pitch controller working as I tilt the cylinder there. And if I go to my radio, we've got rudder control, pitch control in the front, and then on the other side we've got some throttle and our pump. So everything's working really, really well. Really excited. This chapter is now officially at a close, and we are going to move on to the hull. And the only other thing that I've done with that is I've used a razor saw to cut the rear section there. We're going to start working on some linkages. Thanks for joining me.